Rhythm is a fundamental aspect to most music. It defines genres and styles. It makes us move and dance. It can even act as a great expressive tool for composers and performers. But what exactly is it? Perhaps you think you don't know much about rhythm, but you may be surprised to discover just how much you actually do know just from your life experience. You see, your brain is really, really good at deciphering music. It has been working your entire life, even from the time you were still in the womb, to form understandings and expectations of the music you are listening to. That, in many ways, makes your musical expertise far more advanced than you may realize. Unfortunately, though, articulating and controlling this knowledge doesn't always come so easily. That's what we're going to work on together. But wait! Before we can talk about rhythm, we're going to have to talk about something else. Something even more fundamental. We have to talk about the beat. No, not that beat. The musical beat. You've probably heard of it before. Maybe you know phrases like rushing the beat, or dragging the beat, or perhaps even feeling the beat.
Wow!
Yeah. But what do these even mean? I suppose to better understand the beat, we should probably talk about time signatures. But to talk about time signatures, we really need to talk about note values, right? And, well, what about measures? If you're starting to panic, don't worry. A lot of musical ideas are interwoven together, making a description of only one almost impossible to do without involving concepts from another. It may seem overwhelming, but we're going to tackle this one step at a time. So, let's begin for real. And let's start with measures. I've put 4 of them on the screen for you now. Notice how we have a musical staff that is now divided into 4 sections by these vertical lines. Well, each of these sections is a musical measure, named very appropriately because that's exactly what they do: measure music. Now, when we're measuring anything, whether it be time, distance, weight, or what have you, our resulting answer must combine 2 pieces of information: how many and of what. Take, for example, a ruler. The numbers and tick marks on a ruler tell us the how many, and the labeled units, well, these inches and centimeters, that tells us the of what. So, for example, the width of a standard letter-sized piece of paper isn't just 8.5, it's 8.5 inches. Makes sense, right? I hope so, because musical measures are very similar, except instead of inches or centimeters, we will be using beats. As you've probably noticed, there aren't any labels on our measures yet. This is where time signatures come into play. Time signatures are written at the beginning of music and are typically in the form of 2 numbers, one on top of the other. The top number of the time signature tells us the how many. So, in the case of 4/4, we have 4 on top. So we have 4 beats in our measures. I'm going to draw in temporary tick marks for us now to help visualize, but know these would not normally be here. Moving on. We now have our measures and our beats, but we're still going to need just a little more information regarding our of whats.
What?
Whoa. Wait a second. We have 4 beats, right? And beats are the what to our how many. Well, as it turns out, it's not quite that easy. You see, not all beats are equal, and since they aren't equal and can have different values, just saying 4 beats doesn't clue us in to exactly how much music our measure will contain. To get this information, we need to reference the bottom number of our time signature, and to make sense of what the bottom number is telling us, we really need to review some basic musical notes you may or may not already know. We have eighth notes, quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. The names of these notes are important because they tell us how many of themselves can fit in one measure of 4/4. Maybe you're wondering why we name these notes based on one time signature, considering that there are many, many others, right? I mean, there's 2/4, 3/4, 6/8, 15/16, and on and on and on and on and on. Why is 4/4 so special? Well, 4/4 happens to be one of the most common time signatures in music, and is therefore a very convenient foundation from which we can build our understanding of other time signatures. It is so prevalent, in fact, that some music will have C in the place of the numbers 4/4, with this C meaning common time. Anyways, knowing this is how our notes are named, let's fill in each measure with a different type of note. That is, we're going to fill in one measure at a time with only one type of note. In our first measure, we'll use eighth notes, and just like the name suggests, there will be 8 of them. Next, we'll do quarter notes, and again, like there's 4 quarters and $1, there are 4 quarter notes and one measure of 4/4. Moving on to half notes, we know there can only be 2 because, well, each one's worth a half, right? 2 halves in a whole, so half notes, 2. And, well, this leads us to whole notes, which I'm sure you've guessed, takes up the whole measure. Just by looking at this, we can see that quarter notes have twice the value of eighth notes, and half notes have, well, twice the value of quarter notes, and whole notes have twice the value of half notes. Let's not just look, though. Let's listen. I'm going to play these 4 measures so that it takes the exact same amount of time to complete each one, but I want you to listen to the difference in the value of the notes. In other words, how short or long they are compared to each other. Very cool, right? Okay, now we need to connect this information to our time signatures. Of the notes we just discussed, which one relates best to the number 4? Quarter notes, right? That's exactly what the bottom number in our time signature is telling us. So combine that with our top number, and now we know that every measure of 4/4 will have 4 beats, with each of these beats having the value of 1 quarter note. Let's look at other time signatures to see if we got it. What if we had 3/4? Well, let's break it down. The top number tells us that we have 3 beats in our measure. The bottom number is 4 again, which we know to mean that each beat is equal to 1 quarter note. Okay, so what about 2/4? Well, 2 beats, with each beat being, again, 1 quarter note. Feeling confident? Let's try a harder question. How would we describe a measure of 3/8? Start with the top number, 3 beats, right? Okay, what about that 8? If you're thinking eighth notes, you're exactly right. A measure of 3/8 would have 3 beats, with each beat being worth 1 eighth note. So, let's recap. We now know that these sections of our musical staff are called measures, and that these measures contain a specific amount of music. We also know that the time signature tells us how much music we have in these measures by giving us the number of beats and what each beat is worth. I know we didn't get to delve into the really neat aspects of rhythm in this video, but having this information will make the next lessons much, much easier. So, once you feel comfortable with the topics discussed today, join me again in the next video to put our newfound knowledge to use.